拙者は侍なり、戦場しか知らない人間。敵は拙者を殺そうと狙い続けている。今でも一つの戦が終わった。屍を晒す。戦いを終えることができるはずはない。同じ人間を人はなぜ殺さねばならないのか。地獄とはあの世か、それともこの世か、それを知る者は誰もいない。森に光が入り、ここは豊かな国になれるのか。Hello noble ones. Today I would like to talk about my favorite Japanese warlord, the outstanding tactician Date Masamune. Date Masamune was born on the 5th of September 1567 and he died in 1636. Now I'd like to pause for a moment and focus on these dates. So why are these dates so important? Well, you see, each man is a child of his time, and therefore, in order to thoroughly understand the man, we need to comprehend the times in which he was living, the times in which he was samurai. Okay, so he was born in 1567. We are in the Sengoku Jidai, because the Sengoku Jidai is from 1467 to 1603. Okay, 1467, 1603. This is the Sengoku Jidai, which is the age of the states at war. It's important to note, though, that he was born and he lived in the sort of later part of the Sengoku Jidai, which has a name of its own, and it's the Azuchi Momoyama period. More on that later. Okay, studying a bit more deeply this concept of the Sengoku Jidai, we have said we have these two dates, but what happened in these two dates, in 1467 and in 1603? So in 1467 we have the Onin Wars. Now, all you need to know at the moment, on this video, about these wars is that it's because of the Onin Wars that we have the collapse of the Japanese feudal system under the Ashikaga shogunate. So we have a collapse of that. Instead, in 1603, we have the so-called Pax Tokugawa. We have the Tokugawa shogunate rising to power, re-establishing the Japanese feudal system. Now, another name for the Tokugawa period is the Edo period, or Edo Jidai, and Edo being the ancient name of modern-day Tokyo. And the reason why it's called like this is because power will be centralized in Edo into what is called a Japanese monarchic feudal stratocracy. Fun fact: the name Azuchi Momoyama comes from the name of two important castles of the time: the Azuchi Castle in Azuchi, Gamo District, Shiga Prefecture, belonging to the Nobunaga, and the Momoyama Castle in Kyoto, belonging to Hideyoshi. So this is the when. What about the where? Date Masamune was born in the Yamagata Ken, Ken meaning prefecture, which is found in the Tohoku region, the northeast portion of Honshu. Now, this area has a sort of reputation of being, yes, a remote but also scenic region. In mythology, this section of Japan was named Azuma. Now, the Tohoku area, the Tohoku region, is important because, historically speaking, is where the native Ainu are from. Now, the Ainu are a different, separate ethnic group to the Yamato settlers of mainland Japan. They were called Ezo. They are indigenous people of Japan and possibly Russia, or with connection or genetic connection to Russia. The Yamato settlers, on the other hand, who are the ancestors, the common ancestors of modern-day Japanese, are separate from the Ryukyuans and the Ainu. So these aboriginal people once inhabited this area, which faces the Sea of Japan. Of course, at the time of Date Masamune, it is the Yamato ethnicity that controls completely almost the entirety of this area. Okay, so why was Date Masamune such a famous military leader? What did he do? Well, first off, we need to focus on the policy of the clan. The way the clan was strengthening itself at first, it was through alliances. So how did they make alliances with other clans? Through marriages. Although I'd like to underline that this is not something specific to the Sengoku Jidai at all. In fact, you can go all the way back to the Heian Jidai, perhaps even earlier, but definitely in the Heian Jidai, for example, intermarrying with, for instance, members of the imperial family was a way to secure status elevation. So that was something that the Date clan was doing, at least at first. But there were local disputes between clans. Now, of course, that's something that can happen, but let's focus on one specifically. There was one retainer who was an ally of Date Masamune who betrayed him, and his name was Ouchi Sadatsuna. So what does he do? Well, he decides he doesn't want to have anything to do with Date anymore, the Date clan, and he flees, he betrays him, and he goes to the Aizu province. Now, in the Aizu province, he finds a clan, a rather powerful clan, which was the Ashina clan, and he joins them. So how does Date Masamune react to that? He declares war to the entire frigging clan. Okay, so this is the kind of man that we are dealing with here. So he begins a military campaign in invading the lands of the Ashina clan, wanting to have his revenge against Sadatsuna. As he does that, he also starts attacking lands of allied clans to the Ashina clan, and he starts claiming their lands. So he starts to seize also the provinces of Dewa and Mutsu. Now, personally, one of the reasons that I think he continued is because he was being successful. Because if he had met too much resistance, then perhaps he wouldn't have done that. But that's just my personal opinion. But considering the fact that his troops were having success, then of course it just continued. He continued gaining more and more land, probably still building up on the excuse of the betrayal that he had from Sadatsuna. Now, among these landowners, there was an interesting character. His name is Hatakeyama Yoshitsugu. Now, Hatakeyama Yoshitsugu, this man, he understands that he cannot beat the Date. So in 1585, he decides to give his surrender, and they meet in the Miyamori castle. So in this castle, they are discussing the terms of the surrender, and Date Masamune asks for basically all of Yoshitsugu's lands in exchange for his life. Yoshitsugu decides not to comply and he flees, but as he is fleeing, he kidnaps Date Masamune's father, who was living in the Miyamori castle, and runs away. Date's forces pursue, a battle begins in the Abukuma River, and both the lives of Yoshitsugu and Date Masamune's father are taken. Now, in order to fully understand the historical figure of, the historical character of Date Masamune, we also have to focus a little bit on other very important daimyo that you had at the time. Now, in the Sengoku Jidai, when you talk about the Sengoku Jidai, you cannot but talk about a very important daimyo, most likely the most important of them all, and that is Toyotomi Hideyoshi, one of the most important, okay? Now, Toyotomi Hideyoshi is a very important historical figure because he was a sort of overlord of Japan. In other words, Toyotomi Hideyoshi was a force to be reckoned with. And basically both the Date clan and many other clans in the Tohoku region were allies, they were supporters of Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Now, what happens is that, what we need to understand is that Toyotomi Hideyoshi is a warlord, a general, a tactician, a politician. He was very different from Date Masamune. As a matter of fact, there are quite a lot of... I would imagine the two didn't really like each other, I think, because just to give you one idea, apart from the fact that they had a different military agenda, but to say one, Toyotomi Hideyoshi was anti-Christian. He actually had quite a few Christians, I think 26, but quite a few Christians executed by crucifixion. On the other hand, Date Masamune was a supporter of Christianity and a patron of Christianity. So you can see two completely different approaches. But as I said, Now, to understand the political situation, the political balance or lack thereof between Date, Masamune and Hideyoshi, we have to see the date 1590. It's a very important date because it's the date of the siege or the siege of the castle of Odawara. So the castle of Odawara was basically the main fortification and center, nevralgic center of power of the Hojo clan. This is basically the arch enemy and the only obstacle in the way of supreme power to Toyotomi Hideyoshi. So he basically forces all his allies, clans, to help him conduct this siege. Now, what do these clans do? Of course, they all respond, apart from Date. At first, he doesn't want to have anything to do with it. Eventually, he realizes that although I think he already knew that, but he realizes that because of this delay in responding to the call of Hideyoshi, he believes he will be executed. He presents himself with a straight face, ready to face death. We don't know how much of that was embellished, but Toyotomi Hideyoshi decides to spare the man, so he doesn't have Date Masamune executed, and he says that because he understands that there might be still some uses for him. Now let's read this through historical eyes of tactical and military understanding. Now, I think this is an important message. Whether it be 100% the choice of Toyotomi Hideyoshi, or whether it was counseled to spare Date Masamune, it helps us understand that from the perspective of a very powerful clan, Date Masamune was a valid tactician, because otherwise he would have died. Okay, it's a very strange thing that you don't immediately do as ordered. I mean, people in the Sengoku Jidai would have been executed for much less. Okay, this was the power of Toyotomi Hideyoshi, because remember, we are in the Sengoku Jidai. Your diplomatic skills, your ability with words, they mean absolutely nothing, zero, if you don't have a very powerful samurai force to back it up with. Now, the fact that they leave Date Masamune alive is a message for us, and it helps us understand the value of the man, the military value of the man. So the fact that they understood that it would have been such a waste to have Date Masamune killed because of what the man could do on the field of battle and what his army, loyal to him, could have done. Alright, now, as I promised, let's talk about Date Masamune armor. Now, the first feature that makes it recognizable is first the fact that it's black lacquered, and the entirety of his army had black lacquered armor, which I think is really cool. And also is, of course, the golden half crescent Maedate that he has. Now, I've seen quite a lot of replicas. I favor the ones which are massive rather than very small ones. I don't like those. But when you have like very long, massive Maedate, I think it looks really cool. Now, what kind of armor is it? Well, of course, we're talking about Tosei Gusoku because we are in the Sengoku Jidai, so the modern type of armor, the ones that were used and with a better silhouette, tailored, tapered at the waist. We're not talking about Oyoroi. All right. Now, but still, there are a lot of different kinds of armor. Now, what you need to realize, and I will make a video, I'm preparing a massive video which will be on YouTube, a guide to understand samurai armor thoroughly. But the most important part of samurai armor is the do, so the cuirass. I own a few, as you can see, so today we will use this one for demonstration. The armor a samurai wear takes the name from the name of its do, and there are lots of different types, and again, I'm making a detailed video on this. But for example, this one that I have here, it's one of the most common ones, and it's a okegawa do, which means tub-sided because of the shape that it has. And this kind of cuirass is a nimai-do. A nimai-do is the name you give to the kind of cuirasses that have one hinge and one opening, okay, on the side. The kind of cuirass that Date Masamune was wearing instead, it was a gomai-do. A gomai-do has 4 inches and one opening on the side. So slightly different, a bit more complex than this one. Now, depending on the show, depending on the video game that we're talking about, we will see lots of different representations, lots of different iterations of the armor worn by Date in terms of color, in terms of the color of the thread, and also the color of some of the plates. The main look will still be black, of course, because that's the historical reality about it, but you still have a lot of different versions, some of which I find really bad, but others look good. In some versions, I've noticed that he has the lames similar to these. So of course, we always talk about plate, horizontal plates, horizontal lames. These are, I think, this the kind of cuirass that he would have worn, and some video games and shows represent him wearing these. But in others, he's using something that looks more like a hotoke do, which are the ones that you cannot see the lames, they're completely flat, okay? And then in other representations instead, he has got, you can see the curved, domed rivets. I think they all look good, but I believe that if we want to have a real idea of how Date Masamune's armor looked like, then we need to look at the famous statue that overlooked the Sendai castle, which was a stronghold that he himself had built. This one here. Now, Date Masamune was a legend, a legendary warrior and a leader. But he also had a nickname, and it's quite famous, and it's the Dokugan Ryu, Japanese for one-eyed dragon. The reason being that he lost his right eye. Now, apparently he lost his right eye when he was a child due to smallpox. But the thing is, though, that yes, he lost his eye, but he actually lost the entire organ. So he wasn't just blind on his right eye, he did not have a right eye. And there is a lot of speculations, and there are a lot of theories and, of course, legends on why that would be the case. Some say that he plucked it out himself, others say that he had an attendant do it. Reasons obviously flourish. There are a lot of reasons. The reality is that we don't really know. But we do know that he, of course, kept it covered, and that gave him a rather interesting look. Now I'd like to take a little moment to share my own thoughts on this matter. So there are quite a lot of interesting daimyo in Japanese history. Now, the reason why I favor Date Masamune, there are quite a lot of reasons, and I'd like to see if some of these are the same with you, if we share the same sort of reasons for liking this warlord. The thing is that first off, of course, he was a great tactician, as I said, and some of the choices he made I would compare to the choices made by Scipio Africanus. That yes, I love Rome, yes, I always have to mention something has to do with Rome. You'll have to apologize, but I am a Rome fanboy. But it does, I think it's that sort of general, it's that sort of genius mind. So some of the things he did on the battlefield are outstanding, but I really like the mythological aura that he has, because of the fact he was called a dragon, because of his imposing armor, because of the fact his army, the fact that we said his army was all black. These are all things that really create the character. But my favorite thing about Date Masamune is the moon, the half moon, the crescent moon, Maedate, that he has on his helmet. That is the top for me. Although my Sengoku Jidai armor is a Takeda clan samurai armor, but I can easily change that. I just need to change the door, and I am receiving a couple more door, one of which I will use to sort of switch between Date and Takeda, and then changing the Maedate. I will already have not 100% historically accurate reproduction of Date Masamune armor, because of course I would have to add the sort of golden parts that did make it. But considering the fact that there is quite a lot of personal interpretation in games and movies as well, you have a lot of different versions of Date Masamune. I think that if you have the moon crescent, it is recognizable as one interpretation of Date. So these are the reasons why I really like Date Masamune as a character. So now I'd like to expand a little bit more on the fact that, as I said, Date Masamune was amicable to Christianity and in general with the West. So Date Masamune enjoyed foreigners, okay? He liked people, he actually encouraged people, foreign people, to come and live in the island of Japan. And he was a supporter of Christianity. He let Christian missionaries preach in his lands and even have converts, okay, and baptisms, etc. He had nothing against it. And he was even organizing, and eventually he will manage it, but at first he was organizing an expedition to have diplomatic contact with the Pope in Rome, so the actual Holy See. At first he had to cancel that, but then he will manage to do that. In fact, it will be one of the first successful expeditions from Japan around the world, with Japanese representatives of Date Masamune and the Date clan reaching Spain, reaching Mexico, and other areas. Now, the reason why he had to stop this support of Christianity was because as you probably know, Tokugawa Ieyasu will outlaw Christianity in Japan, and he will start persecutions of Christians in Japan. And Date Masamune had, they say regretfully, allow Tokugawa Ieyasu's persecutions also in his lands. But apparently he will risk quite a bit to rescue a specific preacher, specific monk, I think he was, from the hands of Tokugawa, and he will save this monk. Some voices and some rumors say that Date Masamune's eldest daughter was indeed Christian. Now, as you know, I've lived in Japan for 4 years. Now, of course, the Japan I have experienced is modern Japan, but I can still see something that helps me understand the position of Date towards us Westerners and us Europeans. As you know, Japan has experienced a political period called Sakoku. Sakoku literally means the country in chains, and it's a specific period of Japanese history where the Japanese government and authorities, they basically cut off every connection, whether it be trade, whether it be anything, exploration with the West, and in general with foreign lands. So Japan has been a closed country for a certain period of time, but in the times of Date Masamune, as you see, it depends on what warlord you talk about. If Date Masamune had become the supreme ruler of Japan, I would imagine things would have been different, and probably not only Christian persecution, but in general, this sort of idea of Japan closing, putting barriers towards the West, probably wouldn't have happened. But I understand the position of Date Masamune because modern-day Japanese are very similar to how Date Masamune was. Modern-day Japanese, I'm talking general terms, of course, but the majority of Japanese now, they love the West, they love Western people, they are interested in us. I notice this all the time. I mean, people stopping me in the streets just because I was foreign, okay? Even like students wanting to take pictures with me. A lot of things, and I did not have a YouTube channel at the time, so this has nothing to do with me as a public figure, but it was just the fact that I was a young Westerner who was living in Japan. This mostly happens in more remote areas in the countryside, the so-called inaka in Japan. It doesn't happen a lot in massive cities like Tokyo, because there people, if I have to pronounce it the Japanese way, Tokyo, because that's, you know, their people are used to it. But particularly if you go to areas such as Roppongi, where there are a lot of foreign people. But if you go to the countryside, you still can feel this awe and this interest and this atmosphere of being intrigued that Japanese people have towards people from the West. And I can see, so that's why I can imagine the sort of character, the sort of personality that Date Masamune had. And I like it. That is what, you know, some people call me weeaboo. I laugh about it. There are things I have experienced Japan from a cultural point of view, from a linguistic point of view. I've worked in Japan. I've loved the Japanese. I've hated some Japanese. I shared laughs and tears, blood and sweat with the Japanese people. They are a people I understand. It's a country I fully understand. And there are many things I love about Japan. There are many things I hate about Japan, okay? I am as unbiased as you can be, because I thoroughly understand the culture. But this is one of the things I really like about Japan, is how Japanese people, they enjoy and embrace anything that comes from the West. The majority of them are curious, are interested, and that's why I can understand the position that Masamune had. And I think that if I were a Western person, maybe an Italian traveling to Japan in the time of the Sengoku Jidai, I think that Masamune and I could have been friends, considering his personality. Alright everyone, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron. And remember, the Metatron has spread its wings. Thanks to all the Patreon supporters who made this video possible. Goodbye. 伊達政宗の信仰について話しましょう。臨済宗妙心寺派の構想、五歳創一の影響を受け、妙心寺達宗半島院の断骨となったほか、五歳創一の褒めを受けて、松島の延福寺を再興して、随願寺と改称し、当時は伊達氏の庇護の下、江戸時代を通じて繁栄した。伊達政宗は西洋にまたはキリスト教にも興味があったそうです。